Chapter 1. The 8 p.m. Rule. You know those neighborhoods that look perfect on the outside, but underneath, they're a dictatorship with better landscaping? Yeah, that's my HOA. When I bought this place, I thought I was moving into a peaceful, gated community. The houses were beautiful, the streets were spotless, and the neighbors all smiled. Turns out those smiles were fake, and the HOA board ran the place like a military regime. It all started with a letter. Plain white envelope, no return address, just shoved into my mailbox like it was a warning from some mob boss. I opened it, and in bold capital letters it read, "Effective immediately, no resident is permitted outdoors after 8 p.m. without prior HOA approval. Violations will result in fines, community service, or removal from the premises." I laughed at first. Was this a joke? It wasn't in the original HOA contract. Who bans people from walking outside at night? But my laughter didn't last long, because attached was a list of infractions. My name was already on it, for lingering on the sidewalk after 8:07 p.m. the previous week. They had cameras, they were watching. I called the HOA president, a woman everyone in the community secretly called Karen with a crown, and she didn't even deny it. "Rules are rules," she said coldly, "and if you can't follow them, perhaps this isn't the right place for you." That night, I decided I wasn't going to be bullied. At 8:15 p.m., I walked out my front door on purpose, coffee in hand, and stood on my driveway, staring straight at the nearest security camera. At first, nothing. Then, I heard footsteps. From the shadows of the cul-de-sac, 3 HOA security enforcers appeared. Black polos, flashlights, radios clipped to their belts. They weren't here to talk. The tallest one barked, "Sir, you are in direct violation of community regulations. Return inside now." I smirked. "Oh, or what?" That's when it happened. They charged. One grabbed my arm, another tried to shove me back toward my door. I fought back. Not hard enough to injure them, but hard enough to make it clear I wasn't going to be manhandled in my own yard. I stumbled free, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911. The second I said the words, "I'm being attacked at my own home by HOA members," they froze. But they didn't run. They just stood there, glaring at me, whispering into their radios. And in that tense, silent standoff, the only thing I could think was, this was just the beginning. And I was going to end it. Chapter 2. The Knock at Midnight. The police lights lit up my street in flashing red and blue. It wasn't the kind of quiet arrival you see in TV dramas. No, this was loud, blinding, and meant to make a point. The HOA enforcers shifted uncomfortably, the radios on their belts suddenly silent. 2 officers stepped out, Officer Harris and Officer Vega, both with that same professional but we're not here to play look. Harris: "Sir, we got a call that you were being physically restrained outside your own home. That correct?" Me: "That's one way to put it. These 3 decided I'm not allowed outside after 8 p.m. They grabbed me." Harris turns to them. "Is that true?" The tallest enforcer, Tom, spoke up, his voice trembling between arrogance and panic. "The HOA passed a resolution. After 8 p.m. residents are not to be outside. We were just enforcing policy." Harris's brow furrowed. "Policy doesn't override state law. You can't physically restrain someone on their own property unless you're preventing a crime." Was he committing one? Tom hesitated. He was violating community code. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush the air between us. Vega spoke next, her tone razor sharp. "Community code isn't criminal law. You touch someone without their consent. It's assault. Do we understand each other?" Tom glanced at Karen, who had now stepped out of the shadows, arms crossed like a queen watching her pawns fight. Her lips curled into that smug little smirk I'd seen before. "Officers, perhaps I should explain. This man has been a disruption. Our HOA prides itself on maintaining order. If you let one person think they can ignore the rules, the whole system falls apart." I cut in. "Your rules aren't in my contract. You're making them up as you go along. And now your thugs put their hands on me. That's illegal, Karen." Vega's pen scratched against her notepad. "Mr. Callahan, would you like to file a formal complaint?" Every eye turned to me. And in that moment, I realized something. Karen wasn't afraid of fines, wasn't afraid of the cops writing a small ticket, but she was afraid of exposure. The HOA operated on intimidation and secrecy. Dragging them into the public record? That could bring everything down. I looked Karen dead in the eye. Yes, and I want this documented. Every name, every action, every word. The officers took statements. Mine first, then reluctantly the enforcers. Karen kept trying to clarify things, but Harris shut her down with a firm, "Ma'am, let's let him finish." By the time the patrol cars left, the security team was gone. Karen lingered in the street for a moment, staring at me like I'd just declared war. And in a way, I had. The first, retaliation. The next morning, I found an envelope taped to my door. Another, notice. This one claimed my trash cans were visible from the street. Violation number 27, subsection C. Fine, $250. It was 6 a.m. Trash pickup was today. They weren't even full yet. The pettiness was almost impressive. By the end of the week, I had 5 more fines. Grass, too long. It was 2. 5 inches. Their limit was 3. Driveway had visible oil spots. It didn't. I checked. Improper exterior lighting. My porch light bulb was warm white, not HOA-approved soft white. Unauthorized decoration. A hanging plant Karen personally complimented 2 weeks earlier. And my personal favorite. Overuse of mailbox. Yes, apparently I checked my mail too often. It was laughable, until I realized what they were doing. They wanted a paper trail. Enough bogus fines, and they could declare me a non-compliant resident and start foreclosure proceedings. All because I stepped outside after 8 p.m. Digging for dirt. If they wanted war, I was ready. That weekend, I started digging into HOA meeting minutes, public property records, and tax filings. Most people don't know this, but HOAs are legally required to keep certain documents available for inspection. And Karen? She'd been president for 7 years. That's a lot of paper. It didn't take long to find cracks in the facade, thousands in security expenses paid to a company that didn't exist in the state registry, a maintenance contract for street repairs awarded to her brother's construction company which charged triple the going rate. And most interesting of all, a missing $42,000 from last year's budget. Labeled miscellaneous landscaping. No receipts. Suddenly, I understood why she needed total control. A nosy neighbor wasn't just annoying. I was dangerous. The midnight visit. It was just after midnight when I heard it. A slow, deliberate knock at my front door. 3 times. Pause. 3 times again. I peeked through the blinds. Karen. Alone. Holding a manila folder under her arm. When I cracked the door open, she didn't smile. "We need to talk." I didn't answer, just let the silence stretch. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I'm willing to make all this go away. The fines, the complaints. You drop your police report, and I'll make sure you're left alone. But if you keep pushing, you'll regret it." I glanced at the folder. "What's in there?" Her smirk returned. "Proof that you're not the clean little citizen you pretend to be." I took the folder, opened it, and almost laughed. Printed screenshots of my social media from 10 years ago, a couple of old speeding tickets, and, the kicker, a blurry photo of me outside at 8:03 p.m., dated last month. "This is your big weapon?" I asked. "Enough to make you look bad to the board," she said, turning to leave. I called after her. "Karen, you should have offered me that deal last week. Now, it's too late." She didn't look back, but I knew she was rattled. The tipping point. The next morning, I made my move. I called an emergency HOA board meeting, which, thanks to a little-known clause in the bylaws, any homeowner can do if they collect enough signatures. I had the signatures, and I had the evidence. When Karen walked into that room, I could see it in her eyes. She knew. She knew this was the moment her crown might slip. I started with the security budget, then the fake company, then the landscaping scam. Gasps, murmurs, board members shifting in their seats. Karen tried to interrupt, but this time the vice president shut her down. By the time I laid out the missing $42,000, the room was dead silent. And then, the vote. 7 members. 5 voted to remove her as president. Her reign was over, or so I thought. Chapter 3. The Last Strike. For 3 days the neighborhood was quiet, too quiet. After the board voted Karen out, I expected fireworks, public arguments, angry emails, maybe even another round of bogus fines, but nothing. No notes on my door, no security goons in the driveway, no Karen lurking on the sidewalk, which of course meant she was planning something. The disappearance. On the 4th day, I found my mailbox empty. Not just no mail, the entire mailbox was gone. Post removed, bolts cleanly cut. I called the post office. They told me someone claiming to be me had requested a relocation of my box to a PO in the next town over. Classic Karen, petty, illegal, but just out of reach of a felony. I replaced the mailbox myself, installed a camera this time, and waited. The escalation. That night around 1:15 a.m., the motion sensor trip. PED. The live feed showed a figure in a hoodie crouched near my porch. They had bolt cutters. I didn't even hesitate. I stepped outside, phone in hand, camera rolling. Looking for something? The figure froze, then turned slowly. It was Tom, the same HOA enforcer from before. Karen wants her file back, he said flatly. The one that proves she stole 42 grand? Yeah, that's not happening. He took a step forward. I took one back, into the beam of my floodlight. The brightness made him squint, and that's when I saw the glint of something metallic in his other hand. It wasn't a weapon. It was my house key. The breach. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I went through every inch of my house, checking locks, windows, even the attic. No sign of forced entry, which meant either he'd been in here before or someone inside the HOA had a copy. The next morning, I filed for a restraining order against both Tom and Karen. But here's the thing about paperwork. It takes time, and Karen knew exactly how much. The public showdown. The HOA held its annual community BBQ that weekend, a thinly disguised PR stunt where they smiled, flipped burgers, and pretended everything was fine. I wasn't planning to go, but then I thought about Karen's smirk, the missing mailbox, the bolt cutters. So I went, not to eat, but to finish this. When I arrived, Karen was in the center of it all, laughing with a small crowd. She saw me, her smile faltered, then returned even bigger. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced loudly, "the man who thinks our rules don't apply to him." Laughter rippled through the crowd, forced, but enough to feed her ego. I raised my voice. "You mean the rules you invented to cover up $42,000 you can't account for?" The laughter stopped cold. I pulled out my phone, connected it to the portable speaker I brought, and hit play. Out came the audio from my midnight porch encounter. Tom admitting Karen sent him for the file. Gasps, murmurs, people pulling out their own phones to record. The final collapse. Karen's face drained of color. "That's fake." Edited, "He's lying." But the board members were already stepping forward. The vice president's voice was sharp. "Karen, you need to leave, now." She tried to argue, but the crowd closed in, cameras everywhere. Her power was gone, her reputation shattered in real time. The ending. 2 weeks later, the restraining order came through. Tom vanished from the neighborhood, and the new HOA president sent me an official letter. "All fines against you have been dismissed. You are in good standing." But that wasn't the real victory. The real win was knowing Karen could never bully anyone here again. The last time I saw her was at a stoplight downtown. She was in a beat-up sedan, hair tied back, no smug smile. She didn't look at me. She just drove away. And as the light turned green, I realized, sometimes the best revenge is just watching your enemy lose everything they thought they owned.